At AIA Australia, helping your clients in their time of need is our number one priority. In 2016, we paid over $1.15 billion in claims to both retail and group members. That's over $4.5 million every working day. To offer your clients cover you can trust, chat to your AIA CDM today.
Hello Facebook, Ray Jaramis from XY Advisor here. Really proud to be doing this week's XY Live with my co-host Phil Thompson and our guest Joel Robbie of Nod, who's doing some really wonderful things. The formalities, big thank you to AIA who allow us to continue to do this every week. Big thank you to you guys. It is a big day for XY Advisor as well. We're doing our first interstate event tonight in Brisbane. I'm sure if you're part of the Facebook group, you would have seen a whole bunch of advertising and bits and pieces about that, some brilliant content, and Brizzy seems to be one of those hubs that are really kicking off in the country, so we'll definitely be making an effort to be doing heaps more for you guys up north, and we'll be avoiding the state of origin just to keep ourselves safe from that as well. And also just a little reminder, Mastermind is an initiative that we've kicked off, and we've got over 20 groups around the country. This week, groups of around half a dozen advisors are getting together physically all around the country, from Perth and Darwin, Sydney, Wollongong, all around the country. We do have it advertised again on Facebook and on our website. So please, if you're, especially if you're in a regional area, please do nominate your interest to join, and we'll do our best to get you in a group of like-minded advisors. With that, I will introduce Joel Robbie, who started at university doing psychology, as I'm currently doing. So I can certainly resonate with how messed up being introspective can get you. From there, he did actually do a short stint as a coaching assistant at the Swans, which is really cool. And then seemed to spend most of his professional career at Telstra, finishing up as an account executive before crossing over to Fin Services and being the CEO of Nod. So thank you very much, Joel, for taking the time today.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, really appreciate it, mate. And I personally have, sort of watched you since we met, a few months back now. I'm really interested in Nod, but for those that perhaps haven't heard of what Nod is, if you'd like to give a bit of a description, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely can. So Nod is a platform allowing people to get advice about money from a financial expert on demand. So, we think of it like an Uber or an Airbnb for financial advice. We're venture backed, so we're going through a accelerator program here in Sydney, where a venture capital firm called H2 Ventures has put a bit of money into our company to get us started, and we work out of the Stone and Chalk FinTech hub in Sydney. So so that's a really kind of quick snapshot of who we are and where we're up to.
One of the questions, I was sort of, in preparation for this, trawling through your LinkedIn page, so you'll get a view of that.
That's cool.
What makes someone who's doing account management in Telstra come across to Fin Services and go, you know what, I am breaking the trend and kicking something off?
Yeah, it's a fair question. So our story, like a lot of good startup stories, kind of begins from a personal place. So back in 2010, my father was pretty sick. He got diagnosed with cancer, and my family had 3 years before, about 3 years before that, bought a restaurant to try to replace his income. It was a pretty bad diagnosis. So, kind of really long and traumatic story short, that was a pretty bad decision financially and just stress-wise on the family. And I watched every day as my mum and dad, who weren't particularly financially savvy or business savvy, just struggle with everyday financial decisions. And there was no really easy way for them to get answers to those. They could book appointments, they can go and, spend, 4, 5, 6 weeks waiting for answers to things, but there was no just kind of snappy way for them to get answers about really important questions that they were trying to answer on the fly. So that was kind of the genesis for Nod. So Nod was a bit of a reaction to that, had a bit of a look around, worked out that actually this wasn't a problem that was only experienced by my family. It was actually experienced by most families out there at various stages in their lives. And it was a thought there'd be a better way to try to solve that problem by pulling together a bunch of advisors, providing some enabling technology to allow in the moment advice to kind of happen, and then see how we go. So that was the genesis for Nod.
I think it's kind of an interesting point you make there, where it's only 20% of Australians are getting advice, and our business model, everyone's business model really is built around ongoing service. So there's an initial upfront fee, which is the preparation work, basically to set the groundwork to your ongoing relationship, and then it's a monthly fee thereafter. It's really not been about answering short, snappy answers. You're really trying to get that ongoing service.
Yeah, no, it's that's totally fair as well. I think, and I suppose there's a couple of problems we're trying to solve around Nod to try to address that 80-20% split. So I see people like my mum and dad would never have gone and seen a financial advisor and spent especially just that initial setup. They wouldn't have spent the money, but they would absolutely have loved to spend $100, $200, $300 here or there to try to get answers to those burning questions that were burning them up at night, and try to just ease that stress. So I suppose we saw Nod as a bit of an easier entry point for the 80% to try to get them into getting advice and then moving on from there.
It's kind of interesting. My girlfriend actually is a great example of that, where she had a couple of grand saved in the bank and was keen on investing it, because she was a bit frustrated with earning nothing in interest. Went to see a financial advisor just for the sorts of things that you might be able to a platform like that might be able to service, but instead came back with a quote for an SOA that was about 50% of the funds that you had to invest. That's they stay in the 80%.
That's right. So your girlfriend in that situation obviously probably wouldn't bother with it, right? So it just doesn't make so much sense. So we're trying to open up the world of financial advice to more people. We're trying to democratize it, I suppose you would say, and we think it's a worthy goal.
What type of questions are being asked on your platform?
So we get all types. So we get questions about investing money. We get questions about buying a house. We get questions about from small business owners. What should I decisions around kind of tax and that sort of stuff around small businesses. We get questions around super, just the family budget. Yeah, it's a pretty even kind of mix, to be honest. Lots of different topics.
What's for those that have never heard of Nod, and we're talking about answering short, snappy answers to questions. What's the user experience? What happens? What's the journey?
Sure. So user comes on, they go to our website, they sign up for an account usually with Facebook. They then ask a question either in their own words, or we've actually now done a kind of pre-filled list of questions that you can answer, because it just makes it easier for people to get started. Then if required, we'll do a fact find. So we use financial data aggregation technology to basically pull a dashboard of the user's financials together to flip around and show to the advisor, kind of on demand in a few minutes. And the advisor that can then provide the advice either by uploading an SOA, or by, if it's just general advice, they can just type text into a box. And then we also handle, once that advice is given back, the user pays on platform, and we handle all the payments for the advisor as well. Nod's business model is that we take 20% of all the advice fees, and we kind of manage all that split on the advisor's behalf and send the money across.
And so I've got one question about, I've signed up for Nod, and how come I'm only in position 36 now?
So one of the harder things, I suppose, or harder things about running a platform business where you've got effectively two sides of a marketplace, is that you need to obviously balance supply and demand. So we don't have advisors on the platform just kind of sitting there waiting around, not seeing anything happen. We want to make sure that as soon as you've joined the platform and you're active and you're live, that you're getting you're effectively getting a question to answer and some business thrown your way. So that's the reason for that.
Yeah, and you don't want an advisor like me. Is that the that's also the signal I'm getting? No, but seriously, you're waiting for the demand side to kind of.
That's right. Yeah. So we're always balancing those two things to make sure that there's enough users for advisors to service, and there's enough advisors to make sure we can fill the demand that we've got. So.
And with the supply demand thing, does an advisor that ranks in their 30s, 40s, or 50s, do they have to charge a lower amount than 1, 2, 3? How does that kind of work?
No, so I suppose the platform is continually evolving in terms of how we run both the user experience and the pricing side of things. So at the moment, there's kind of it's a bit of a fixed fee structure, but we're going to be moving to a model very, very soon, whereby advisors will basically just set their own fees. So you set your own fee, your own hourly rate, or your own fee for particular types of questions, whatever that might be. So that's how it'll work in the very near future. The other thing will be we're about to enable basically for a user to book a face-to-face appointment with an advisor as well. So we got a lot of feedback. One of the fun things about running a tech startup is that you tend to do a lot of just user testing and to getting fast feedback and iterating on stuff. And one of the bits of feedback we have was that actually I wouldn't mind going and seeing my advisor face-to-face. So we're about to enable that feature as well. And then your normal kind of pricing structures would take hold, and we would basically then just be seeking a 20% referral fee.
Yeah, so I just had a question, just to step back just about that process. You said the client pays after the advice is given, and you also said that there's the ability for the SOA. So from an advisor's point of view, why would I complete a full statement of advice for a client who hasn't committed to pay me a fee? Is that the current scenario? Did I get that right?
So the way it works is that the client's credit card gets charged once they've accepted the advice or the advice is delivered. And that's just, we're dealing with an online, in any online kind of trust-based service, there's a bit of a barrier there for people, giving money out for stuff that hasn't come back, especially something that's, that can be pretty intangible, like advice can be before you've actually received it. It's kind of hard to work out what you're getting. So that was an important piece of feedback we got on the consumer side to say, look, we need to make sure that I'm not getting charged until something's actually being delivered to me. That said, we do actually hold the customer's credit cards on file before the agreement's made to provide the advice. So if there is a situation where we see that the client's got the file, they've read it, we can see what they're looking at, and there's, they just haven't clicked the accept advice button, then we'll manage that situation accordingly. So the idea is that trust is developed on both sides.
Yeah, so it's not a matter of I'll go ahead and do all this work. If they don't love the advice, then they can just opt out of pay.
No.
Yeah. Okay. No. Yeah. That makes sense.
You can kind of see how that would make sense. It's a funny one. It's kind of getting paid for leads, or you could see how that works for advisors, right? Because you definitely see someone calling an office like ours saying, "Hey, I've got a bit of a deposit saved. I'm keen on getting a home. What do you reckon?" And that sort of spits back to needing to do an SOA. But if it's just preliminary questions, and I'm answering under a general advice, which I imagine a lot of people are doing, where it's like, these are the sorts of things that you should be considering. Yeah. You're basically creating a framework for someone to come in to talk to you at a one-to-one level. Are you sort of seeing that?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the majority of what we see. And yes, we absolutely. So I think there's exciting things on both sides of the marketplace here. So the first, for advisors, it's a way to engage new clients in a pretty frictionless way, and probably clients that you may not have engaged with traditionally, just because they're people who are looking to engage in a maybe a more transactional way initially, just to get some answers to some kind of basic questions. But then there's also obviously the potential to turn those into real kind of paying clients in the future via a referral system. And on the consumer side, all of a sudden they've got access to a pool of expertise that they wouldn't have had access to in the past, because it would have been really hard for an advisor group or an advisor to serve this style of client in the past, just because it wasn't quite so efficient. But with a platform like Nod, it becomes efficient to do so pretty easily. All that whole process end to end is taken care of for both sides.
Yeah.
So.
I just want to kind of dive a bit more into the fees side of things. So we've got some questions from Benjamin Marsh on the Facebook Live. He said, how are you dealing with debt collecting? And if I guess it's more around once you have the credit card on file, if you get a decline after the advice is provided, what's the kind of process and around that?
Yeah, so we know before an engagement is accepted, we know whether the card is basically good or a good card or a bad card. So we know that up front. So before an advisor is connected with a consumer, we know whether the card has enough available funds to pay for the advice. That's point number one. And the point number two, we haven't had a situation yet where we've had to go debt collecting. I've got to say, it's we've tried to design the process and kind of where we take the credit card and all those sorts of steps in a way that we don't really have to go chasing people. It's pretty intuitive on both sides, and both sides are protected. So,
and just to follow on from that, can we have an ongoing advice client relationship through your platform? Or is it just built on the once off? If you want ongoing service, contact the advisor separately and
No, absolutely. So we have had lots of feedback from both sides that they would like to have the ability to go and set up an ongoing relationship, go and see the advisor face to face, and get deeper after that initial engagement. So our vision is that we will absolutely allow and through our platform enable people to book appointments with advisors and go and see them, and then we would basically take a referral fee for passing that across. So. Absolutely, yeah. We're all for people getting advice in whatever way they see fit and whatever way they want to receive the advice.
Yeah, awesome.
I'm really keen on, and I didn't ask this question previously, so I'm not sure if you've got the data around the demographics of clients using this stuff. You sort of made comment earlier that these are perhaps people that wouldn't traditionally go directly to an advisor. So I'm just keen, and the reason why I ask is if I'm a young advisor and I've got a target market of clients that are tricky to get my hands on, is not a way of doing that. So who's kind of using this stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So it tends to be a younger demographic, and part of that's our targeting. We've kind of purposely gone after a slightly younger demographic of 29 to 40 kind of year olds. Okay. Maybe have got one or two kids, generally. Professional, time poor, living in the city, kind of urban areas. So that's kind of our profile. Both men and women. We've got a really even split of gender. It tends to be that style of client.
Yeah, cool. Clayton Daniel asked what does client success look like? So have you guys sort of mapped out what you'd ideally have as a client journey, or what sort of articulated that, I guess?
Yeah. So for us, it's about clients getting advice good advice as quickly as humanly possible, and hopefully they end up setting up a nice ongoing relationship with whatever advisor they've connected with on Nod. We've built a rating system into the platform, so whenever a client gets some advice on Nod, they rate the quality of the advice out of 5 stars. Happy to say we've only ever had 5-star ratings on the platform, so that's a good start. But that's how we look at it. So it's about speed of the advice, quality of the advice, both in terms of verbatims and ratings, and also we tend to look at referrals. So clients have the ability to refer their friends kind of to Nod after the fact of getting some advice. So we like to see that word of mouth happening for the platform as well. That's kind of some of the metrics we track.
Is it just financial advice? Because I imagine a lot of this stuff, Australia, it'd be remiss of me not to recognise Australians have a love obsession with property. So I imagine a lot of this stuff is around that transaction.
Definitely. So about 20% of the questions we get are around buying a house. So we have, just to that point, we have mortgage brokers on the platform. We also have accountants on the platform. So it's not just financial advisors. We call them financial experts. So it's a bit broader than just financial advice. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to get too deep into the licensing space and all of that, but I mean, just a few things that come to my mind. So, payments. If you're an advisor, you're licensed through a larger licensee, all revenue needs to go through that licensee. How's that managed through the platform?
Sure. So so the way that works is we make the transaction with the client. 20% of that fee goes to Nod. 80% of the fee goes directly into whatever bank account the advisor nominates with us. So if that needs to be the licensee's account, if that's a company account, we're not fussed, but we're happy to set that up in a way that suits the advisor.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's pretty easy. And then just a question, I guess this is probably the biggest burning question, is when you're providing answers, where's the line between general and personal? And that's a big concern for advisors.
Absolutely. And, it's, I suppose the short answer to that is the same rules apply in the digital world as apply in the face-to-face physical world. So, if you're dealing with someone's personal situation, if you've got information on where they're sitting, if their financial situation, all that sort of stuff, if the question they've asked is structured in such a way that it pertains to personal advice, then you need to follow those same compliance rules as you would in the physical world. We have an ability for a client to be able to opt into general advice, so they'll actually select general advice and say, I want advice kind of generally on this topic as opposed to anything pertaining to my situation. So that's an opt-in thing, and that's clearly marked when you get your job from Nod as well. So you'll know when that's been selected. So those are some of those things. I'll also just kind of drop a new thing we're bringing to market as well. So we're about to put in place a bit of an umbrella insurance scheme around Nod as well. So I don't know if you've ever seen the insurance schemes that Uber, Airbnb and Airtasker have got in place. But basically they're protecting both sides of the market. So
I don't know what it is, but I know if a cleaner steals my stuff, I get $1,000 back.
Correct. Kind of similar. So we'll have our own kind of PI insurance that will cover advisors, and we'll also cover consumers as well. So kind of excited about how that's going to play out. Initially, it was kind of designed as a trusting on the consumer side, so to help consumers break down some of those walls to just getting in and booking appointments. But there's probably some benefit there for advisors as well as a bit of a backstop.
Yeah, it's one of those. PI is one of those mazes that no one understands, and how that crosses over with our PI and your PI. And I think from an advisor, it wouldn't be. You'd need to do a lot of due diligence on your PI to kind of trust that that's okay. Sure. I guess that the whole platform is built around trust. So advisors need to trust that if I'm giving general advice, that Nod is managing that process, that the client has fully opted into general advice. They understand the difference between general advice and personal advice. And so I guess for you guys, your job is really just about educating consumers, educating the advisors, and also, I don't know, maybe advisors need to get that signed off by licensees. Are you experiencing that with your advisors on the platform?
Yeah, definitely. So we have most of our advisors tend to be kind of from smaller dealer groups and independent kind of firms, just because, you can imagine how long it would take to a big bank to get their advisory group on board with this at this stage. So we tend to deal with kind of more nimble firms and more nimble dealer groups. So that's absolutely true. I would definitely recommend checking with your dealer group before advising on Nod, just to make sure they're cool with it.
Yeah, my process, just to give a bit of insight, in doing a bit of due diligence was flicking it through to our licensee, regulator or compliance officer, if you like, and ultimately I think it comes back to the clarity as to whether or not you're operating under general advice or personal advice. But if you can put things in place like people opting into general advice, and you're talking in roundabout terms, and you're not talking in a way that's directive, rather just these are things that you might consider. I think there's perhaps an element of discretion there, which would suggest if it's something that you're interested in doing, then this is a way that you can do it.
Yeah.
Not too dissimilar to a random phone call, really. If someone calls you and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about buying a house," they're going to want you to demonstrate that you are thinking about things that are valuable without giving advice.
Yeah, I mean, Joel, it's literally one of the greyest areas of our whole industry, and you guys have jumped all in on it, and you're building your whole business around this grey area between general and personal advice. So well done, mate.
I love it. It's also dividing the traditional normal advice versus robo advice. You're kind of where I think the reality is somewhere in between, right? It's
100%.
You're not. I would challenge the idea of someone, with making life-changing decisions would be happy to do that through a computer. Majority of the time, but I would make heaps of decisions, and I don't necessarily need someone. Like I got my private health insurance sorted out last night after my accountant smacked me on the bum, and I didn't speak to anyone about it because I didn't need to. Just work out the themes and away you go.
Yeah. Our whole business is based on the hypothesis that people still want a human involved in these sorts of conversations. And, we think robo has its place as well, but we think fundamentally there's a massive and will always be a place for human beings in these sorts of interactions, because it's really hard to code for empathy. And that's what we think advisors bring to the table, is the ability to understand a human being's situation and not just see them as a kind of asset on a spreadsheet.
Yeah, most certainly. Yeah.
And I mean, I was saying it's kind of the biggest grey area of our industry, but that kind of leads to it's the biggest need for our industry. Like that is the biggest pain point. The fact that people can't just sit with an advisor who is an expert and ask a simple question and get a simple answer. That's the biggest kind of pain point. And just to kind of go into more the technical side of everything, with Benjamin Martian's asked a question, is the obligation on the financial expert to make sure they're meeting their obligations in regards to licensing? We've kind of answered that. That's yes. But he did ask, with your because you have mortgage brokers, accountants, and financial planners, and if someone's asking about debt, are you making it clear that the person speaking to the end user is a mortgage broker, and therefore, I guess, making it clear what they can discuss?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So the user gets a full profile of the advisor. So who they are, what their job title is, a bit of a blurb about them and their skills and what sort of things they can address and what sorts of things they can't. Company logo, ABN, AFSL, all that stuff is in the advisor profile, which you'll see when I take you off the waiting list, Phil. But yeah, so the client is 100% informed who's giving the advice, where they're from, what are their licensing conditions, and what they can and can't advise on. So we've made it really, really comprehensive.
Yeah, and just another question Benjamin's asked, and I'm kind of asking these tricky questions because I think the more clarity we can give to the advice community about the platform, the better it is. Just around the PI insurance, are you guys registered with FOSS or EDR, External Dispute Resolution Scheme, or does this come through from the licensee?
Right. So we're not registered with either of those schemes. We have actually taken out our own tailored insurance a scheme, I suppose, which has been put together by the same company that did Air Taskers. So so we'll go down that road.
My sense is, Benjamin, talking out of turn, my sense is Nod are a platform, but ultimately because you as the advisor are engaging with the client just via a different platform, it's really on you and your licensee and your compliance team to make sure that you're operating within that framework, because it will be you that is asked to answer the question if the question's asked.
Yeah, and that's a really important point. So when advice is given on the platform, the advice is not given from Nod. The advice is given from the advisor. That's really, really clear. We make that really clear to the client as well. We're a platform that helps connect two people and provides some enabling technology to allow that interaction to happen really efficiently. But the advice is being given from the advisor, not from Nod.
Yeah, and I think that insurance policy is I mean, if I was speaking for you've got that just to give your consumers more confidence.
Yeah, exactly right. It's just about building trust.
That you're talking to has got a PI themselves, and we cross our fingers that you'll be fine. That's really for your consumers.
100%. It's just about building trust and trying to break down some of those barriers to interacting online, as you get with other kind of big platforms out there when they were first starting out. So.
And Nigel's asked, have you had any client advisor disputes yet? And if so,
No.
how did you go with it?
Not one.
Okay. Well, a follow-on question: what are your processes to deal with a dispute? Let's say I'm a consumer. I've got an SOA, so a statement of advice from the advisor, but it kind of wasn't really what I wanted, not what I expected. I didn't really want to pay that fee. You guys have charged me for it. What kind of process do you guys have?
Yeah, so basically it's pretty simple. So the client will register, say that they've got an issue with the advice that was given. We'll do a bit of a review of it, kind of match it against the client's feedback. And then kind of take that feedback back to the advisor, see if there's a way to augment the SOA or whatever advice was given so that it actually answers whatever missing pieces or whatever questions there were. And then hopefully that addresses the problem. If not, then I would struggle to see where there'd be a situation where they wouldn't address it. But if there really is an impasse, then Nod will normally step in to just make sure both sides are happy.
And also not understanding how the advisor's complaints, external dispute resolution scheme that we are licensed under, or we hold, and kind of maybe potentially referring the clients off to that if it's really something you can't solve.
Absolutely. So again, the relationship is between the client and the advisor. Yeah. If we can't solve it, then we will refer to kind of external parties like that for sure.
Yeah. Cool. Maybe all good. No, yeah, cool. I think that's the cleanest way to think about it. It's the relationship between you and the client, or the advisor and the client, and there's a platform there that allows you to do it in a clean and scalable way. That's kind of how it's sat in my head. Moving on from compliance. So, are there examples you have of advisors using Nod really, really well? Like how are they going about it?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing that a client loves out of Nod is just that really fast responsiveness. So our average response time on general advice at the moment is down at around 6 to 8 hours for a client getting an answer. So that's pretty quick compared to what the average time is. If you're going in and booking face-to-face meetings, that can take anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks, right? So the best advisors give great advice. They answer the question really directly, but they also do it quickly. Those would be the two things that I would say are the kind of client get the best response from clients.
Yeah, wonderful. And is that in financial advice or mortgage broking? Is there a particular capacity that you're seeing doing this really well?
I would say most of those questions would be around kind of more financial advisory stuff. So here's my situation, or here's my topic of concern. Can someone give me a kind of quick answer as to how I should be thinking about this, or what are the things I should be considering?
Cool.
And Ray, we've got an audience question for you, mate. We don't normally get this for the people interviewing. You're on Nod. You obviously jumped in front of me. I don't know how that happened. Have you answered any questions just yet?
I haven't. No, not by virtue of anything other than poor timing. So I jumped on the platform, Glenn, probably after Easter. And I did my due diligence with our compliance, and I explained earlier what that experience was like. So there's no inherent concerns with the structure or the platform that Nod provide. I haven't used it by virtue of the fact that I was between Easter and end of financial year, which is probably a bad answer. But thanks to our federal government, I've been running around making sure pensions are under 1.7 or 1.6 and, NCCs and all that. But I'm keen on looking at it. Us personally, I won't shy away from the fact that we've got an older client base, probably 60, 65 years old, self-funded retiree or pre-retiree. We are really, really putting a lot of effort to helping the 40-somethings, getting better at the ones that want to talk to us via digital, how we do that scalably via technology. And for me, Nod is something that we absolutely need to be considering in terms of, how that works. And it goes to that comment earlier that I made about it being perhaps a way to get paid for lead gen. If I can demonstrate value, through answering a nominal question for a nominal fee, in my mind, I'm perhaps just responding to a website query but getting paid for it. That's my initial thoughts, but I haven't used it yet. No.
Yeah. So, Joel, I've got a tough question for you. How are you going to win in this space? We had Nikhil on last year who did Pro Advisor. His model wasn't a marketplace. His was more lead gen for advisors. Yep. And he went into a lot of detail. If anyone listening, go back to the podcast or watch the video on that, because he gave us a lot of details on. He just said it was really difficult. The cost of a lead and to convert that into, charging the advisors was really expensive. So how are you guys going to win? There's a few in this space. So how are you going to do it?
Yeah. So I think where we differ from a few of these kind of different platforms that are out there, I think, is the fact that it's a genuine two-sided marketplace. So we're not just kind of passing through leads to down the funnel and kind of never seeing them again. We're trying to create a two-sided marketplace, completely technology enabled, to allow interactions to happen between two people very much on platform. And what that creates is network effects. So where the more advisors we have on the platform, the more value there is for consumers. The more consumers there are on the platform, the more there are for advisors. So what we have to do is to create a really good technology piece in the middle to enable that value to be kind of extracted from both sides. So two things. That network effect is going to be really, really important. It's kind of a bit of a different take on this space from what's come before, but also that enabling technology is really important to that. So there's plenty of fact find tools out there. There's plenty of personal financial management tools out there. We don't think that advisors should have to pay for those. We think you should be able to use those for free on a platform like Nod. So I think it's just a different business model, which we're excited about.
Mm. And I guess the just circling back around to that trust, just the same as Airbnb, you're sleeping in someone's house, then they can murder you at night, and someone's car, like an Uber, there was this massive fear around, you don't know the people, but like having a marketplace and a network where, there's ratings, makes that job easy for the consumer, because at the moment, what do? They just Google it, and they might look at your websites and they don't know if that advisor's dodgy or, really what they get from it. But having a platform like that where you can interact with the advisor through the platform, but also, the cream will rise to the crop through that platform as well, makes it easier, builds that trust.
Absolutely. So if you think about Uber and Airbnb, it's a really good way to describe it. You wouldn't get in a stranger's car. Even now off the street, you wouldn't just get in a stranger's car. But for some reason, because you booked it through a particular app on your phone, you think it's okay. So what that talks to is just trust in a platform and trust in a brand. And we're going to have to go through that same journey of building that.
Yeah. Cool, mate. That's wonderful. I will allow a couple more minutes just to round us out. So if there are any questions from the Facebook Live, please do so. There was a question that I missed at the beginning, a little bit off topic, but still kind of cool. I'm sure heaps of guys are interested in this. What's it like developing something out of an accelerator?
So I would recommend the H2 accelerator to anyone. I can't speak for some of the others. I have heard, there can be a mixed experience depending on what kind of accelerator you're in. For us, it made a whole lot of sense. A, because we needed the capital to quit our day jobs. But B, we really valued the mentorship we get from Ben and Toby Heap from H2 and the kind of mentors they bring to the table with us as well. We've just started to raise our next round of funding as well, and one of the mentors that Toby and Ben brought to the table was the first investor into that round. So there's a lot of benefits to being in an accelerator program for people like us. It made a whole lot of sense. For others, you won't need it. It just depends on your specific situation. But I'd recommend H2 Accelerator to anyone.
I do love the idea of being an environment where you're learning yesterday's lessons without needing to be there yesterday.
Yeah, 100%. We learn more from kind of the founders who've just finished the accelerator program than anyone else, to be honest, because they've just gone through what we're going through.
And so H2, do they have any external investors, like any of the big banks or anything that you can potentially leverage off?
Yeah, so I haven't checked their latest investor list, but I'm pretty sure they got some investment from some of the super funds at one stage in the current fund that's now open. So, and Investec is a big investor in H2 as well, big corporate partner of theirs.
And within the accelerator, is there any way to leverage off those relationships? Is that
definitely? Yeah. So we've met the Investec guys. We've been introduced to a few of the funds, the banks. We've met and spent a lot of time with both Reinventure, Westpac's venture capital arm, and NAB Ventures. So yes, absolutely. It's part of the deal with accelerator programs. Is there's a lot of connections there that you can open some doors without maybe having to work quite as hard for it as you would if you were just coming off the street.
And last question from me: how much money are you raising, and how much is your company worth?
I won't tell you how much it's worth, but we are looking to raise about $500,000. So it's a true seed round.
Awesome.
You have to sign the NDS, Phil, and put your self-managed fund under it. Awesome, Joel. Hey, man, really appreciate it. I did forget to mention Joel's been in Europe up until sort of first thing this morning, so he's probably in the middle of the night in his brain, but he's been really, really wonderful. I appreciate it. It's a fascinating space, man. It's totally outside the box in terms of, what you would walk into the industry delivering to people. So I commend you for that. It's a pretty brave and it's a great endeavor. So well done to you, mate.
Thank you very much, and I really appreciate you guys making the time to have me on. Hopefully I've made some sense. And just a really quick plug, if you want to check it out and become an advisor on the platform, the URL is www.nod.money. So love to see a few of the advisors out there come on here, because we love the XY Live community. It's the kind of advisors we're looking to have on the platform. So really encourage you to check it out.
Awesome. Thanks, Joel. And I expect to be accepted sometime later this afternoon.
No worries, mate. Okay.
Jump the queue for me.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys. Bye.